Hey everybody, welcome to G4G here on YouTube. I'm your host Napalm Dawn, and today we're going to do a little bit of a hybrid video over here. So what we're talking about with this hybrid video is we all know we've had several Marvel related games in our lives since at least 2010. Starting in 2012, we had Marvel Avengers Alliance, and then we would go on to have Marvel Contest of Champions, Marvel Future Fight, Marvel Strike Force, Marvel Avengers Alliance 2, Marvel Battle Lines, Marvel Heroes, and of course, Puzzle Quest and the Junior Academy game. Not to mention all the Marvel games prior with things like Marvel vs. Capcom and the Ultimate Alliance games. So this is an idea for a video that I've been thinking about for a little while now, and I'm finally having the time to sit down and do it. What this video is going to be about is, this is strictly an opinion-based video, and you are all certainly welcome to comment on it down below. And I really hope this is a video that begins a great deal of discussions down in the video below, as I see a lot of people are probably going to talk about this and have opinions, and that's what I hope. This is a video that I really think is going to be a conversation starter, and that is, I'm going to compare the power levels of characters that we had in Marvel Avengers Alliance to their appearance in other games, and kind of discuss where they're at their most powerful. And again, this is my opinion, this isn't anything official, and really we're going to talk about the gestalt of a character, so their suits in Marvel Avengers Alliance and in other games will come into play on this one. So if there was a suit that made somebody really good in Marvel Avengers Alliance, it's going to count for them. Also, even if somebody was super popular for just a short period of time and burnt out like a candle wick, it's going to help them, but it might not be enough to push them over the edge in that particular category. So, today's background soundtrack is brought to you by The Messenger. If you don't know about The Messenger and you have a PC or the Nintendo Switch and you are old as shit like me, you should go check the game out, as it is a complete and lovely looking throwback to the Ninja Gaiden games on the NES, Ninja Gaiden 1, 2, and 3. The soundtrack, the sound effects have a very Mega Man, NES Mega Man, and Ninja Gaiden feel. And what's interesting enough is the game, you'll notice this one says Disc 1 the past, the game hits a halfway point and changes over to 16-bit level gaming, so it sounds and looks a lot like SNES games. So we're going to use the Avengers Alliance wiki as our basis over here. They have them done by class, which is their default suit. So we're going to go through that class by class over here, and I'm running a timer. This way this video doesn't get too long, and I'll do it in multiple parts. So let's go ahead and begin. Oh, actually, before I do, please note that for this video, I'm going to take into account their status in Marvel Avengers Alliance, Future Fight, and Marvel Strike Force, and a little bit Marvel Battle Lines. I'm not really going to go ahead and talk about Contest of Champions, because it's a skill-based game, or the Junior Academy one, or Puzzle Quest, because I haven't played it, but there will be some references to Marvel Heroes in there. So, Black Bolt. Black Bolt was in Marvel Avengers Alliance, he is in Future Fight, and I do know he is somewhere in Marvel Battle Lines. Can't really say if I remember him being in Contest of Champions. He might be, because I think I have Medusa. So really we're comparing Marvel Avengers Alliance to Marvel Future Fight on this one. He's decent in Future Fight. He's a universal hero. He was never really meta, and the only person I knew that ever really talked about Black Bolt in Marvel Future Fight was my Alliance lead, Alan, who built himself a really good Black Bolt and said, hey, people are sleeping on Black Bolt. He's really good. But he just he's never really rose to the top in Future Fight. One of his more recent uniforms gave him a little burst of life in Future Fight, but I'm gonna have to say he wins in Marvel Avengers Alliance. There's just a few things you could do with Black Bolt. He did get buffed at one point because he was so shit in the beginning, but if you were a fan of MAA back in the day, you probably encountered Kingfisher's Black Bolt and Thing are invincible in PvP video. It's the reason why I do videos today on this topic, basically. So I'm going to have to give the nod to Marvel Avengers Alliance. Black Knight, only in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Black Panther. So Black Panther is a bit of a oddball here. He's enjoyed a slightly higher than average power level in the games that he's been in. Of course, he has a great movie, and who knows what they would have been able to do in Marvel Avengers Alliance after the movie came out. Clearly, there would be a uniform, and probably one that had some kind of damage reduction and absorption that would maybe either give him a shield or give him strengthened or something like that. Hopefully Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux will do something with him, but BP got better as the MAA years wore on. He didn't really suffer power creep. He actually got a little bit better, including when he got the urban jungle suit. He's in Marvel Future Fight as a combat hero, and he's considered a poor man's Wolverine. If you haven't had a Wolverine built up, Black Panther is easily farmable and is considered just about as good nowadays. Over in Marvel Strike Force, he unfortunately is considered a little bit weak, but his power level has spiked recently. And in Marvel Battle Lines, he is a very good team lead, and I think he has a decent card, but he's actually a very special and unique leader on the battlefield, as when he gets damaged past a certain point of hit points, he starts popping enemies on the field for damage, which is often enough to soften them up or kill them. That being said, in all that you just heard over there, I'm going to have to do my first cop-out of the entire video and say I think it's even. I think it's a tie between all of the games that he's in. He had very, very good moments in Marvel Avengers Alliance once you started taking his ISOs into consideration, including the one that did like the daggers as a quick action, and Panther stance was fixed a little bit. You could make some good use of Black Panther back in the day. He's pretty solid in Marvel Future Fight. He's a little bit weaker in Strike Force, and he's really good in Marvel Battle Lines. He is pretty much my go-to lead for most of my decks. So I honestly kind of believe this is a tie among all of the games, with really only Marvel Strike Force being a little bit of a weak spot for him. So up next we have Boomerang. Don't really remember Boomerang in any other games, so we're going to pass that. Cammy, like, fuck Cammy. Just, we're not even going to talk about her. Captain America. Captain America, a lot like most of the other Avengers, with a few exceptions, enjoys a low, high tier to an upper middle tier notch in most of the games he's in. He's very easy to farm in Future Fight, and he's gotten tremendously better as his uniforms have gone along. Within Marvel Avengers Alliance, he got better and better with his uniforms, and of course he had varied roles that he fulfilled in his different uniforms. Stock, he's a decent tank, but World War II, he was one of the few who began tanking at the beginning of the match. I was a huge fan of Captain Steve Rogers. This was a little bit of a hard sell for people, because he became a Swiss Army knife in this uniform, and most people expected him to be a tank, and he didn't tank in this form, but he was aggressive as shit. In Avengers Age of Ultron, he prevented exploitation statuses with other Avengers. He is considered one of the best tanks in Marvel Strike Force, and he is also considered pretty good for combat Lady Day in Marvel Future Fight if you get the lady suit for Captain America. So he's pretty solid all around, and almost like Black Panther, you could almost say he's a tie across the board. He's even a very good card in Marvel Battle Lines with an AoE attack around him for only being 2 gems. Tough call on this one. Like Black Panther, I almost kind of want to give him the tie again, but in all honesty, I'd have to say right now, he kind of wins. Oh god, it's hard. I can't even... Some of these I've scripted in my head because I've thought about them over the last few days. A lot of it is off the cuff, but Captain America, I'm gonna split this one up. His best tanking appearance, I'm going to give to Marvel Strike Force, but his best overall appearance, in terms of what he could do, I gotta give to Marvel Avengers Alliance. He just had too many uniforms and too many classes that he could be. He just has a really good kit in MAA, and he can fulfill just about any role you put him in. So I'll have to give the overall win to MAA, but he's the best tank in Marvel Strike Force. Constrictor, he's nowhere. He was only in MAA. Cyclops. So Cyclops was probably a very big beginner tune for people in Marvel Avengers Alliance. He was for me, and he really enjoyed Power Spikes with Phoenix 5 when it came out, and Uncanny with Don't Die On Me was off the wall bugged for a long time, where he just rezzed and rezzed and rezzed people. That being said, he is also in Contest of Champions. He was also in Marvel Heroes, I believe. Yes, because there was like... Yeah, he was. And I actually played him. I had a relatively high Cyclops. He's not in Battle Lines. And he's now with the mutants in Marvel Future Fight. In Future Fight, he is solid on his own, but he's mostly often used for his buff. In Marvel Strike Force, of course, he doesn't exist. He doesn't exist in Battle Lines. I have to give the nod very, very clearly on this one to Marvel Avengers Alliance. His uniforms just made him too good, and he was a huge, huge stay in the meta of PvP for some time. So I think Cyclops enjoyed his best power over in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Dr. Doom is now in Marvel Strike Force. He was in MAA, and that's really about it. I think he's an enemy. Well, he's now in Future Fight. Excuse me. He's now in Future Fight. He's referenced in Strike Force, and he was in MAA. From what I'm hearing, despite the fact that he's on top of a epic quest right now in Marvel Future Fight, his highest power level is probably going to go to Marvel Avengers Alliance. It was easy to counter him after a while, and down the stretch, Dr. Doom totally got power crept out to the point where he didn't even really have much more hit points in the way of the agent. So what was the point of the teammate isolation? But when he started, Dr. Doom was very good on offense and very good on defense at the time. If all of his ISOs were around at that time, Dr. Doom probably would have been unstoppable. Gotta really give it to MAA on that one. Emma Frost. So Emma Frost was in MAA. She is not in Marvel Strike Force, but she is in Marvel Future Fight. She was also in Marvel Heroes, one of the first heroes I played quite extensively for some time. Her talent tree was amazing in Heroes when they had the original talent trees. You had a diamond form tree, you had a control tree, and a psychic tree, and she actually could mind control enemy mobs and they'd be your pets. I'd almost have to give the nod to her in Marvel Heroes, but we're not really considering that one. In Marvel Future Fight, she's one of a few characters in the game like Enchantress and Mantis that are allowed to kind of break the rules of the game and do things to characters that nobody else really can. And of course, in Marvel Avengers Alliance, she was ridiculously strong, especially with the Phoenix 5 outfit and then the later Infiltrator ISO that came out that allowed her to pre-fire Psychic Tap as a move was coming in, which meant she was very, very dangerous. Despite the fact that she's solid in Marvel Future Fight, the win to me very clearly has to go to Marvel Avengers Alliance. That late game spike due to the Infiltrator ISO put Emma back in the meta for the second time in her career, and she was just too good in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Venom X is in MAA, and he also is in Marvel Future Fight, but he really is kind of nowhere in any of the games. He absolutely needed stealth in Marvel Avengers Alliance, and it took a long time for him to get it. As a matter of fact, he had to be teamed up with X-Force Psylocke to get it, because Infiltrators just loved shitting all over Phantom X. He was weak unless he could get out his Ava ability, which required AoE. So, yes, just not really too strong anywhere. I haven't played him much in Marvel Future Fight, despite the fact that I have him, but I guess I'll have to give it to MAA for that one. Gamora. So Gamora is definitely worth a talk over here. When Gamora first came out in Marvel Avengers Alliance, it was an extremely impressive sprite. She also had vicious looking abilities, including the execute, and her graphics and her animations were really, really good. And then eventually she started showing up with the Guardian suits, and she was quite abused as a infiltrator, and she was one of the first characters to be able to use Doom. And Doom on a level 1, before that was fixed, is particularly nasty. That being said, for her time in Marvel Avengers Alliance, she is also in Marvel Strike Force, and she is in Marvel Future Fight, and she's in Marvel Battle Lines. Marvel Future Fight, she's absolutely nowhere. She's nothing in that game. She has a pretty sprite with the galaxy on her cloak, but she's not that good. Marvel Avengers Alliance, she was very popular for quite some time, especially with Guardian teams. However, very clearly to me, her big spike in power level is Marvel Strike Force. She wins in that category over there. Gamora is capable of almost one-shotting people in that game. She is a better Daredevil in Marvel Strike Force, and she's very, very good teamed up with Guardians, but she absolutely stands alone as just an amazing assassin. The Godslayer is truly appropriate for Gamora in Marvel Strike Force. Hank Pym. So Ant-Man, as it were, has had several iterations over the different games. Marvel Future Fight has the more modern movie one, and they also have this representation of Hank Pym. He is also in Marvel Strike Force as the movie version of Ant-Man. But specifically for this one over here, this Ant-Man, the Pym one, I really have to give it to Marvel Avengers Alliance. Awesome looking abilities with his animations. The Ant Swarm was great. Really good with debuffs. Scroll of Runenmaroth, Pesty, Hank and Hank, or all Hanks on deck. As it were, the Hank and Hank Heroic. Pym really had a very, very good niche in Marvel Avengers Alliance, and there was a time in which bug squashing, the big boot, was a deadly ability. So for me, I think he absolutely wins in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Hawkeye is in MAA, he's in Future Fight, he is in Strike Force, he is also in as a pretty decent card and an action ability in Marvel Battle Lines. Marvel Avengers Alliance, he was really solid, especially with the Heroic Age outfit. All the Avenger movie ones were okay, but Heroic Age was just so cool because of Loaded Quiver and his chance to join in on attacks. He was even an initiator for Rocket and Hogun if you wanted him to be. He was pretty strong in Marvel Avengers Alliance, but he wasn't like mega meta or anything. He's also very strong in Strike Force, but he's absolutely nowhere in Future Fight. It's almost a tie between Strike Force and Future Fight, but I gotta say he probably, Strike Force and Marvel Avengers Alliance, but I really gotta say he wins an MAA just because he's got so many suits and does a lot of things well in MAA. In Strike Force, he's a great debuffer, and he removes buffs, and he blinds. He's a pretty strong character, but I think he was more important in Avengers Alliance. Howard the Duck does not appear in other games, but he is in Contest of Champions, both in a giant duck suit, like Voltron, or a symbiote Howard the Duck. Kang does not appear in any games. Kate Bishop. Kate has an interesting history over here. She is in Future Fight, and she was a speed queen meta for a little while. She was considered a very good speed character when there was not a gender-specific speed day. Now there is a male speed day and a female speed day. But when it was just speed, Kate Bishop was pretty solid. She was briefly solid in Marvel Avengers Alliance when her boomerang arrow worked, which was about the first month that she was released. After that, boomerang arrow got broken and was considered one of the biggest and most embarrassing games in Playdom's history, that they just didn't want to spend any effort fixing her boomerang arrow, and she languished nowhere for about a year. Kinda gotta say, aside from being teamed up with Hawkeye, I think I have to give this one to Future Fight. She's not a speed meta person now, but she definitely was, and I would say it was about equal, if not longer, to when she was good in Avengers Alliance. We're getting a little long here, so I'm going to try and speed through the rest of the tacticians. Kraven is here, and he is in Marvel Future Fight. I have to give his power level to Marvel Avengers Alliance for sure. Very good, bleeds, traps, a lot of fun teams with Kraven. Lizard is a combat hero in Future Fight. He is also in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Really not a standout character in any of the games. I would have to say he wins an MAA just by default. Loki is now in a lot of the games. He is in Future Fight. He is now in Strike Force, and he was in Marvel Avengers Alliance. He was often underutilized in MAA, and you really kind of had to build a team around him, but he did get better with his ISOs. All of that being said, Future Fight, he wins hands down. Loki is considered a beginner's hero in that game that everybody is told to get, and Lady Loki, or Floki, female Loki, ruled the female universal categories for many times, and just universal villain categories. Loki's place in Marvel Future Fight's history, I'm sorry, is just stronger there than anywhere else. He's good in Strike Force, and he has a role to fill, but he was just too strong for too long in Future Fight. Magneto is in MAA. He was in Marvel Heroes. He has been in some of the Marvel vs. Capcom games. He is in Future Fight now, and he is a legendary character in Strike Force. I don't know him well in Strike Force, but he enables other Brotherhood mutants to get really, really strong. He is part of a meta team in Strike Force, if you have him, called the Brotherhood of Mutants. He was very, very strong in Marvel Avengers Alliance, especially with melee heavy groups like Magneto and Jugs and Magneto and Quicksilver. That engine ability was destructive in the middle days of PvP. He's also very good as a blast villain in Marvel Future Fight. This one is, again, another tough call, but the blast area is so full of good characters in Future Fight, with the exception of blast villains. I gotta say he wins in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Moonstone doesn't really exist. Mr. Fantastic. So Mr. Fantastic is now in Future Fight, and he's considered fairly good. And he was a tough pill to swallow in Marvel Avengers Alliance because he was so weak. However, his deadly crits and his ISOs made him better, and a lot of people swear by Mr. Fantastic and his skills, even as the game died. He was criminally overlooked in Marvel Avengers Alliance, and it's too new in Future Fight to know where he really stands in terms of power. And there is no Fantastic Four in Marvel Strike Force, and I haven't seen any Marvel Battle Lines, so I gotta say he wins in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Quake. Quake is in Marvel Future Fight. She was in Marvel Avengers Alliance, and she's also in Marvel Strike Force and Marvel Battle Lines. She wins, to me, clearly, hands down, Marvel Strike Force. Marvel Strike Force, she just fulfills too good of a role of debuffs. Her natural attack causes a slow, which is amazing. Anytime you can slow several people on the enemy team and take your turns faster, it's good. She was solid in Marvel Avengers Alliance, but she is top tier meta in Strike Force, so I'm going to give it there. Red Hulk is in Future Fight, and he was in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Despite being somewhat solid in Marvel Future Fight, hands down he wins in Marvel Avengers Alliance. That Gamma Bomb toss was just way too powerful, especially when teamed up with Pesty or the Scroll of Runemeroth. Not to mention, his tanking abilities for a tactician were off the charts in Marvel Avengers Alliance, and he was so annoying with the heat generation that was often considered bugged. When he blew up, you felt it. When he threw that bomb, you felt it. When you couldn't get rid of his fucking debuffs, thanks to Pesty, you felt it. So he wins Marvel Avengers Alliance heavily. Rescue doesn't really exist in other games. Songbird is in Marvel Future Fight, and that's all for her. She was a bit weak in Marvel Avengers Alliance, and she's fun to play in Future Fight because it's like playing a fighter jet. But I gotta say, with all of her debuffs, she's better in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Superior Spider-Man is a uniform for Doc Ock in Future Fight. It's a nothing character. It's a nothing suit. He wins in Marvel Avengers Alliance. And finally for this video, War Machine. So, War Machine just hit Marvel Strike Force this week with, I would probably say, a uniform closer to the original than any of these others. We sometimes refer to him as Pepsi when he's in his Iron Patriot suit, and he is also in Marvel Future Fight. He's considered solid, and he's often recommended to newbies when it comes to Marvel Future Fight. But too long, too strong, Marvel Avengers Alliance, especially the blaster suit with Pepsi. Everybody would freak out when they knew a full overcharged 21 gun salute was coming, especially if they could do nothing to protect themselves or get rid of the debuffs thanks to the Runemeroth or Pesty. War Machine was just too strong. Not even behind the scenes, like, he was just too strong throughout the life of the game. He had an extremely good use and could even have very, very good single target if he wanted to. So there you go, guys. There is this first video here on what I think are the Marvel character power spikes throughout their various games since Marvel Avengers Alliance. Again, for the basis of comparison, I'm using Marvel Future Fight, Marvel Strike Force, Marvel Battle Lines, with some honorary references to Contest of Champions and Marvel Heroes. There was, of course, Marvel Avengers Alliance 2, and as much as I actually really liked that game and never had a problem with it, I don't remember how good or bad the characters were in that game. I'd actually have to go and watch my old videos to see where they are. Plus, that game was only MCU, so we would never really be talking about mutants in there, even though Marvel Strike Force and Marvel Future Fight are now allowed to deal with mutants. So, in the next video, we will go with blasters, which will probably be as long as this one. However, certain characters in Blaster aren't anywhere else. Warlock, Cannonball, Damien, Deathlocket, Dr. Voodoo is nowhere, Electro is in Contest of Champions, but that's about it. Any of the Runaways are not in other games, so look for the next video coming where we'll talk about the blasters. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and by all means, talk down in the comment section below. If you agree with me and some of my assessments, let me know. If you really disagree on something, hey, let me have it. This is just an opinion. It's not fact. So peace out, everybody. See you later.